The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to Speaking with the Senator. I'm Senator Kevin Avard, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about politics, which we do on the show frequently. And we have some candidates that are coming up the ranks, and I wanted to introduce you to one of them. She is a local, if I would have the license to say this, but she's a local celebrity in Hollis because she has a cooking show. And actually the very first time that I had spoken to her was at Market Basket, and it was in the produce aisle. And I think we were talking about something about the schools back then, and she's very engaged with a lot of local issues in Hollis. And so I want to introduce Liz Barbour to our show, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Well, it's great to be here.
And I'm glad you're here. And of course, we were talking about food, and we were talking about, you do have a cooking show.
Well, I do cooking demonstrations, and I used to travel all around New England,
Right.
New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and take my kitchen with me in bins and do my programs in front of libraries and nonprofit organizations. But once COVID hit, my business completely shut down, as many small businesses did.
Right.
But at the, I had to really think, and I thought, you know what, now is time to go online, which is something I had been thinking about but hadn't done it. So within 2 weeks, I completely changed my business model, set up 3 cameras in my kitchen in Hollis.
Really?
And now I'm on camera between 4 and 5 nights a week, depending on the week and the time of year. And so now I'm actually reaching a much broader audience. I've got people joining me from Texas, California, Oregon, Hawaii, all over the country. So it's been a really great move for me. And it's given me the opportunity to then not do all the travel I was doing, so I can devote more time to what's going on at home and in my community and all of that, which
you gave a long list of everything from Girl Scouts, the PTA, to a host of other things, the Lawrence Barn in Hollis. And so you've been very engaged in a lot of activities there. So you know Hollis pretty well. You've been there for about, what, 20 years, 22
about
years?
23 years.
Yep.
We moved there in 1999. We are fortunate we live in one of the oldest homes in Hollis, built in 1768, and we arrived with a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Strangely enough, I think a lot of people would think, well, that's a very busy time for you, but that was the time when I really started focusing on getting involved in the community. I really felt that the soonest we could get to know people, get involved with different organizations, different volunteering, the better known my children would be, the better, the more friendships we would develop, but also that we would then be embedded in this community, that we knew we would be there, possibly for the rest of our lives. So
one of the things I learned years ago, just serving on zoning boards and planning boards and even city councils, it was dawning on me that you get such a great education on how your community works. And I can't stress that enough. And by you getting engaged with the PTA and all those organizations, you learn a lot about your community.
You do. And I initially got involved with the Women's Club, the Garden Club, and that was a generation, more of my mother's generation. And I was just so attracted to these women and then, their spouses, because they had lived in Hollis for a long time. they understood what Hollis was all about, and they introduced me to the climate and the culture of Hollis. And then the other thing, of course, was that these people had seen it all. They'd done it all. There was no complication in their life. Nothing seemed to faze them. So as a young mother, it was just, every time I saw them, it was joyful. It was fun. I didn't have to worry. And I had some great friends who were engaged in the schools, and I so appreciated that, because they gave their time there, and I gave my time in more broader community programs and events and things like that. I chaired the Strawberry Festival at one time. I did work on the Lawrence Barn. That was an amazing community project.
It's a beautiful barn.
It is an amazing barn. We are so fortunate. And most of that barn was funded and put together through private donations of time, of labor, of materials, and due to the more conservative fiscal constraints of our select board at the time, we really were able to bring that in right on budget. So it was a great project to be in.
On that note, I know we did that in Concord years ago with the Audi, and what happened is the community got engaged, and they used to put on, because the Audi was the city auditorium, it was kind of run down, it was old, it wasn't being used, and some people got together, they put on some Broadway plays there, and they raised funds. And the thing about it, when people get engaged and it becomes their project, there's a little bit more ownership to it and a lot more pride to it.
Yeah.
And kind of wish that Nashua would have done the same thing with the Art Center, rather than just, hey, we're going to just tax you on it. Get people engaged. Get them to volunteer and to raise funds and to be part of it, rather than, hey, we're going to do this.
Well, the buy-in gives you the sense of community.
Right.
Like you said, we're all in this together. We've got another project on the horizon, is with the Farley Building, which was which was the schoolhouse, and it's currently in its mothball state. But that's a very exciting project coming up, and that's another opportunity. And I think the great thing about Hollis is they see those opportunities to pull our community together and to ask, can you do this? Could you do that? When you take the right person and put them in the right position or the right opportunity for them, amazing things can happen.
Right.
And that's what I had learned over the years, is how do you meet somebody and maybe they're not part of your general sphere, but there's something about them that you're like, you know what, that guy, he's going to do this really well. Why don't I give him a call?
Yep.
And then you've pulled somebody in who is not in the group, who now is a part of the group.
And you just build a bridge.
You do, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that when you get elected, that you'll learn that building bridges, it's an art form, and it's very gratifying. And I think right now there's a lot of polarization going on, and we understand it, but as you get up there, you're going to meet people on the other side of the aisle, and they may agree with you on one issue. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Pull them in,
Right.
draw them
Right.
in, and I work with Senator Waters. We're polar opposites, but when it comes to energy, and we know that there's a crisis going on now with energy prices skyrocketing, well, I need him on my side.
Yes.
And he needs to be on his side as
Right.
well, so that we can serve the public. And I think that that's an art form that you develop over time. Yes, there's definitely going to be issues where we're going to look at each other and say, "You dirty rat," But at the end of the day, we're friends.
Right.
And we can work together on issues that we know that are going to help our constituents. And over time, you learn that, and it's a beautiful thing. But obviously, you're seeing that now in your community activity.
Yeah, and what you just said, I mean, I have been speaking with local leaders in Hollis. I have spoken to former state reps, asking them, what was it like when you were there? Because, the reps that I've spoken to, they were there in the 1980s and 90s, a very different temperature.
Climate,
yeah, I would say. And I think that the same nature applies. We agree on more than we realize. We disagree on how things should be done. But when you are working for the good of the people that you represent, you have to be willing to find a way to say, all right, I'll give a little here. It doesn't mean I'm going to compromise on my principles, because that will never happen.
Well said.
And that will, I am an honest, I am a transparent person. I'm learning to have my voice. And that's the thing that people are going to see will transform from me. And what I don't know, I will learn. And who am I going to learn that from? Mm-hmm. I can learn it from you. But if I don't talk to that person across the aisle, I will never see that other perspective.
That's well said. You're right on. I think when they appointed me to Energy, I walked into my first committee hearing, and I looked at the crowd, and I just said, hey, I'm really honored to be here, but I want to tell you something. I know nothing about energy. And it kind of, it's liberating.
Yes.
You don't have to come in and say, hey, I'm the smartest, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. You can come in and say, look, I'm going to give you an honest approach to problem solving, and I'm going to listen to everybody. And it doesn't mean you're losing your principles, but you can. It's so liberating. I can't tell you that way. You don't have to walk around with this facade, saying, hey, I'm the greatest thing. You can just go in there and say, okay, now let's get the facts. And I'm a person who wants to solve a problem and let people shine in the process. And I think I sense that from you to some degree, that's where you're coming from. You want to get in there, do your best, learn the process as it goes, solve some problems.
Well, I think a famous senator said to me recently, it's like drinking out of a fire hose.
Oh,
and that would be you.
Yeah,
so,
it is.
Yes, and there's a lot of information coming my way. But if I am unable to say, whoa, I don't know about that, but I'll find out.
Yeah.
You can't lie your way through that. You can't, you have to, I'll have to be honest. That's who I am. And I think that the nature of people will be very helpful, even those on the other side, right? Because they don't want to see me fail as a member of their committee.
No.
Am I right? I mean, because you're a committee. You may disagree, but the committee needs to work together to succeed. And I would assume that whoever is chairing that committee, their goal is to make sure that you are all working well together. And so the strengths and the weaknesses and the things you learn from each other are going to be really important. And
committee is fun. It can be challenging.
Oh, did I just look at that through my rose-colored
You
glasses?
kind of did a little bit, but that's okay. But because everybody, some people will come in with an agenda, and some people won't. Some people are easy to work with, some people are not, and you'll see. But so thank you for running. And I know that some of the issues that people are really struggling with. We interviewed somebody on the People's View the other day, a senior woman who she just got out of Greenbrier, and she had to sell her car, and the cost of living is just going nuts. And you and I on air or before air, we were just talking a little bit about the food prices, and people are really concerned about that. You buy food every day for your cooking show. You're seeing these costs go up.
I am. And, the thing about, let's just take food at the grocery store, for example. Grocery stores don't make much of a margin on what they're selling. So I think when we look at our grocery bills and we see them going up, that's a true sign of inflation. That's a true sign of prices truly rising. It's not that particular grocery store has decided we're going to make a huge profit. We're going to take advantage of this. I don't see it that way.
They're not gouging.
No, not at all. And there are a lot of businesses out there like that. our local gas stations, their profit margin is very low, which is why they sell, the food and the coffee and all of that to make up for it.
Right.
So we have to be careful who we're demonizing on that, and let's look at the deeper behind the scenes issue. Everybody is feeling this. The woman you spoke to is going to feel it acutely because she is on a fixed income, I would assume.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it any less critical or frightening for a young person who's out of college and they just got their first job and they're like, wow, look at my check.
Yeah.
They have to go to the end stub and see
Oh.
that check is so much smaller than they realize, which of course for my kids was like this big wow.
Yeah.
But you're going to feel it the same because of your income level, how you're bringing in your income, fixed income. Young people are just starting out, so we don't want to discourage that, discourage them.
Right.
And even those who live well,
They're feeling it.
they're feeling it.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? What's going to struggle? They're not going to be able to give to charities. They're not going to be able to support nonprofit organizations that they may have done before. Those numbers are going to go down as well.
There's a trickle effect with that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
New Hampshire's done pretty well. I think it was announced today that we have probably about a 400 million in surplus. But that's because we lower taxes. Every time we do it,
Yes.
we replenish the coffers,
Right.
and then we send it back to the towns. I think one of the things that I struggle with trying to communicate to the public, that when the state sends the money back to the towns, it's not more money for the towns to spend. If you can encourage your aldermen, your selectmen, and your city councilors, hey, why don't you give some tax relief? Because that money goes back into the economy as well,
Right.
rather than spending it on your pet project or
Right.
your art center or whatever you want to do. Send it back to the people.
But that's where New Hampshire is really going to feel it, right?
Right.
Is in their property tax.
Right.
And that's going to give them that sense of relief. But you also, they have to work together with the selectmen. Like you said, it can't just be that unilateral decision. You've got to bring it to the people to help make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And that surplus, that is due to conservative fiscal management.
Right.
And, you can't deny that. And we need to keep that movement going, and at all levels.
It's
of our
been
government.
working every time that we
Yeah.
do it, and
Yeah.
a lot of the conservative states, a lot of the red states seem to be enjoying the surpluses. And one of the things that we're doing now, that we just got that horrendous information that the PUC's approving an energy rate hike. I think the governor and Senator Morse have declared that we're going to be sending some money back to the ratepayers. We're going to take some money, maybe $100 million out of that.
Right, yes.
60 to 100 million. I'm not sure
Yep.
what the exact number is. Back to the ratepayers, especially to those, I believe, that are on fixed incomes and
Yes.
low income as well. But some people are going to be driven out of their homes if something isn't done. And so we're all working together to address this energy issue. But the fact that we have that money to send back is important.
Yeah.
You have rainy day funds, you have oil reserves, you have all these things for a reason. So when, on the federal level, for them to get rid of our oil reserves, that puts us in a very vulnerable position.
It sounds to me like what you're saying is that going forward, while we're still in this crisis, that to be creating new government programs and all of that,
not a good idea.
that is right now, that's short-sighted. And we have to be very cautious about that. And there are a lot of things that the questions we need to answer. What is the problem we're trying to solve? Can we find a public sector business, a company that can take on what it is that we're trying to solve, so that, we're not creating another government program.
Right.
What fiscally, how is this going to look down the road? How is it going to look right now? And then when we do create these, are they infringing on anyone's individual rights?
Right.
So these are all questions that, when I get to Concord, those are questions that are going to be part of what I'm going to ask when I am asked to vote on a bill and to consider any kind of legislation going forward. And these are questions that we should all be asking. And again, being very careful about the free money that's could be coming our way, because
somebody's sending that money. That's not free.
There's ties to that, and you have to look, underneath the covers to see what that is.
That's one of the things that's really been troubling me over the years is, as you see, we got this federal grant, we got this federal grant, we got this federal grant. Oh, look, if we do this, if we vote for this bill, they'll cut off the federal grant. And it's as though the federal government has learned, or over the years, that to micromanage state rights and state, all the way down to your locals, saying, okay, we're going to give you this money, but there's not strings attached, there's some chains attached to that. Right. And you're going to lose some of your sovereignty. And one of those things, we had some strong debates over that this past session, saying, hey, look, we just want to protect people's individual rights from being forced to take a vaccine. Mm-hmm. That was one of the issues that came up. Yeah. And they said, well, Senator, if you go that route, we'll lose this federal money and the hospitals will be, put in jeopardy. And it's like, okay, so where does this stop? Where does this stop? So you have to be very careful. I know Ringe, New Hampshire, they have an organization called Save Our Town. One of their objectives was always to stop any form of federal grants coming into the town so that they can keep their autonomy, if you will.
Listen, it's very freeing not to have that. I know in Hollis, we have a fund that is funded by the town to help people who have energy concerns. So this winter, there will be applications sent in, and we're going to pay and take care of our people. And then we could get donations from other taxpayers in Hollis to do that for them. So that makes, there are no strings attached to that for those who receive it. They just need to fulfill the application requirements. So it's free and clear, and it's the most caring way to do that. And then, of course, like you said, you're autonomous. You do not owe anybody anything. And again, the money from the federal government, we have to be very cautious of that, because they know now that they've created a sense of
dependency.
We need that money now, right? Because maybe we've created programs that originally relied on that, and then years later, they're just perpetuating themselves.
That's right. And you get more of what you fund. And I've heard that on other stations. So you get more of what you fund, and you create a dependent class, and that's really not the American way.
Right.
We want to allow people to help them if they have needs.
Yes.
But if it can be done on a local basis, that's the best way to go about doing it, and then getting them on their feet so they can be producers, and then they can help others, rather than just generationally being dependent on whether the state or the feds. So we got about 3 minutes left to the show, and I just want to give you an opportunity to reach out to the people in Hollis and say, hey, hi, I'm Liz, and please vote for me, or something to that effect. If you want, you can look at the camera and just give a plea.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Well, I'll just say that this is my first time running for public office. This was never something that I had planned to do. I have no ambition to make a political career for myself. So why would I do this, right? I'm at a stage in my life where, my kids are out of the house. We're planning a wedding for my daughter at the end of September. And, my husband, Ted, is, the retirement is on the horizon, and we have a whole other season of our lives. So why now? And I think for me, it's, again, another opportunity to serve Hollis, but in a way that it just suits my life right now. I have been acutely aware of politics over the past 6 years. It's just been an interest of mine. But that was on the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
And then it occurred to me, well, it really became evident to me during the pandemic that it's the local level, because what was happening during the pandemic, while it was given out a lot of these, new rules, all of this was from the federal level, I could look to our local, our governor and our Senate and all, and I could see that you were all making decisions that would affect our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt, I think I'd like to be part of that decision making.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to speak for the people where I live. And I like to think that I'm very approachable. I am a listener, and I want to make sure that that I am, again, I am honest, I am transparent. That is so critical to me, and I will do my very best. And again, what I don't know, I will learn. And I have the opportunity with the people who I've spoken to so far. They are teaching me a lot, simply by being open and telling me what concerns them. And so we have concerns for our children. We have concerns for families. We have concerns for the older segment of our population, and young people who are just starting their lives. And so I want to tell people that I am hopeful, and I want to be helpful, and I want people to know that I can change my mind. And if you change your mind and what I have to tell you is something that excites you or makes you feel like we are like-minded, come on over. I'm here.
How do people get in touch with you? You have a Facebook page?
Yeah, they can go to Liz for Hollis on Facebook, lizforhollis.com, and you can email me at lizforhollis at Gmail.
At Gmail.
Yes, yeah.
And your cooking show is?
The Creative Feast, and it's always free. Go to my calendar, go to my website at thecreativefeast.com.
Got to give a plug for that.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Hopefully you enjoyed this the conversation, and you'll definitely consider Liz for this next election. I believe you're running on the Republican ticket.
Yes, I am.
And so until next week, thank you for watching Speaking with the Senator, and we'll see you next week.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.